Peace, peace, peace. What's good, family? What's good? What's good? What's good? This is your boy Solar Mind, and I am here live with Nyame and claim your inheritance. So when you come in the building, hit that like button. Hit that like button when you come in the building, family. This is the Solar Vision Debate League. They're going to be discussing a very important topic tonight. So this should be very informative. And I'm looking forward to the information that each person is going to present tonight. Once again, it's Nyame and claim your inheritance. The topic for tonight's discussion is how to progress as a nation in the 21st century. So, get your pens and pads ready because it should be a very interesting discussion, family. And today, all the trophies came in today. So I will be sending out the trophies by the end of this week, family. So we can get this whole thing started. Let's see what we got going on this week. I'm gonna take a glance over there at the schedule. This Tuesday, do we got something popping on Tuesday? I believe we got a presentation that we got to set up. Oh, that's going to be this Sunday. That's all the way this Sunday. That'll be between, that'll be with Outside the Cube is going to be presenting a presentation on Charles Darwin. Was Darwin a racist? He will be doing that this Sunday. I believe Wednesday we're gonna have another discussion with Gideon and Orthodox Moore, and they're going to be discussing is literal blood needed for salvation. So we're going to try to get So Real and Sayyid Al Mahdi in the building this week as well. So definitely tune in this week. I'm gonna get this thing popping, and I got some things that I want to present myself. You know what I'm saying? And I got some debates that I want to issue to some of the debaters because this is the off season. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't count, but I'm still going to be smacking people up this off season. As what I said. So, yes, as what I said before, let me go ahead and present to the family. The trophies are in, family. The trophies are in. The trophies are in, family. MVP. Y'all can't see it, but they can. MVP. Most improved debater. Championship trophy. Iron Man of the Year. Y'all can't see it though. Y'all can't see it, but they can. Shout out to the family once again. Claim your inheritance. And then Nyame is in the building. How to progress as a nation in the 21st century. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing started right now. We'll let Claim start off the discussion because he got some information that he want to present. And then we'll hand this thing over to Brother Nyame. So, claim your inheritance whenever you're ready, brother. Hold on, let me go ahead and set this whole thing up so you could be able to show the people your information real quick. Okay, brother. Whenever you're ready, brother, you can begin presenting your information.
All right, this is a very important topic for the Black community. How to move forward and progress as a nation. And so, what we see now is integration and we vote without being represented as a majority in in their power system. So we need to create and emulate their power system because it's partially effective. It just has some kinks that they refuse to uh, modify in a timely manner. So as we move forward, you got to remember and keep in mind uh, COINTELPRO that goes by a new name today. I don't know the new name of it because it's still very secret. Okay, the intended effects of the COINTELPRO as it that term is kind of debunked in the FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, and Department of Defense, all the rest of those alphabet boys. That term is not used in their situation today. It goes by new names. So the very first thing that they decided to do was target the Communist Party when it first started. And of course, it has branched out into anybody can get it. All right, so they have perfected their craft, and they look for particularly the intended effects of COINTELPRO is to create a negative public image for target groups by surveilling activists and then releasing negative personal information to the public. Break down internal organization by creating conflicts by having agents exacerbate racial tensions or send anonymous letters to try to create conflicts. Create dissension between groups by spreading rumors that other groups were stealing money. Restrict access to public resources by pressuring nonprofit organizations to cut off funding or material support. Restrict the ability to organize protests. Restrict the ability of individuals to participate in group activities by character assassinations, false arrests, and surveillance. So, as I said, when they first started out, they was targeting the Communist Party, but now they target everybody, women. Uh, but they especially the main focus is Black Americans. Reason being because you're Israelites, and uh, they do everything in their power to try to be sure that you don't rise as a nation. All right. So let's get into some ideas that we have for creating a nation. All right. So the main concept that I came up with was creating a voting process or emulating their voting process. Once we emulate their voting process, then we have something to rally around. And once we rally around that goal of having successful elections, just like uh, all all modern countries have today, are elections. So all these people that are voicing their opinions on how Black people should progress, okay, there is no clear cut um, chosen leader by the people of the people that they are trying to reach out to and organize. So if we have elections, we have one goal in mind, and then the conversation will change to why are we choosing this person as a leader? Because there are many people who are anarchists who believe that we should never have a leader, but leaders lead uh, flocks of people that are merely trying to survive and don't have the time to do what we do, which is trying to improve the community, trying to improve the minds of the people and the social construct of the Black community in order for us to improve. And so, as we see, we have not improved because of that reason. We don't have clear-cut leaders that we can support and put all of our funding behind and all of our efforts as far as marketing and footwork, uh, getting bills passed in the dominant society to make our lives here more pleasant. So now the mission, this instruction here that we're talking about was drafted and finalized by Yanai Banyasharala. It's a good friend of mine, and it's founded in the scriptures. So if you hate the scriptures, then you might have a problem with this lesson. But there are no scriptures in the lesson, but it's based on scripture. So now our mission is the mission of Bebop is to provide new self-sufficient, self-sustaining communities for all of African Americans and Latinos. Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, had 600 businesses, 21 churches, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, 2 movie theaters, 6 private airplanes, 1 hospital, 1 bank, and its own school system before it was burnt to the ground and many of the occupants were burned alive and assassinated by local bandits, just regular local racist people. So the government did not come in to do those things. The locals, local racist KKK and other white nationalists came in and did to them exactly what they did over there in recently over there in that other country where that white nationalist killed all those Muslims. The synopsis: Bebop will be used as a vehicle to address the economic and social ills that have plagued African Americans and Latinos while living in America. The overall goal is to set up new communities in the 48 states that rest on the continent of America and utilize its functions to enable our brothers and sisters in the rest of the world to be able to duplicate these functions, to allow for an international community for so-called minorities worldwide. But as anyone knows in the conscious community, and there aren't many conscious people in the conscious community, but most people that consider themselves intelligent realize that Black people are the majority of Earth and that white people are 2% to 1% of the Earth population. So we are, in fact, the majority, and the dominant society is moving towards a global citizenry because they're trying to create a one world government. So at that time, when they become successful, hopefully with Black people ruling that government, will be considered a majority again. The overview: 7 phases of Bebop: community building, economic growth, internal trading, interstate trading, international community building, international trading, international socialization. Community building. Bebop will construct autonomous communities within the 48 states that reside on the continent of America to function as a replacement for the current communities that we presently live in. The communities will provide the basic necessities: food, shelter, healthcare, etc., to all of its members, with the exception of clothing. Through the socialization program of Bebop, we will address the post-traumatic slave syndrome and the economic struggles that have plagued our communities. Community building, government assistance. In 2016, the United States government spent $30 billion on rental subsidies for low-income households and $6 billion on public housing. African Americans averaged 27% of those monies. 29% of Section 8 41% of public housing, 12% of vouchers. So when you add all those up and divide it by 3, you get 27%. The approximate total amount of housing assistance provided to African Americans by the United States government is $9,720,000,000. Community building, government assistance, 1 out of 3 individuals that receive food stamps are African American, approximately 9 million. The approximate total amount of food assistance provided to African Americans by the US government is $10 billion annually. So if we organize properly and promote this thing properly and have many of these people interested in purchasing property within each continental 48 United States and moving to it and building it like similar to building HUD homes whenever you move into a HUD home, which is included into this low income housing and things of this nature, then they will be effectively saving, the United States government will be saving 19 billion bucks. All right. So if they were to redirect those $19 billion into these communities, or even just half of that amount into these communities, then that'll be a great start to get them off the ground. With our own power plants, our own bank, our own hospital, our own everything, stores, and the rest of that. Economic growth. Through Bebop's economic structure, community businesses and network businesses, Bebop gap and ultimately eliminate the current social classes within the United States today. Bebop will target the judicial and legislative systems to invoke changes in law that will benefit the overall economic growth of the community as a whole. The economic growth, see, this is a stark contrast right here to most Black leaders in the Black community. All right, so you got people like NAACP, they understand this concept where you need to constantly put pressure on the system by drafting bills that alleviate the economic stresses and the white national gatekeepers who guard the gates of countless jobs in the United States. So we can go around them very easily whenever we put our minds and efforts together on one accord. So as we're building our own, we still need to put major pressure on their system in order to make it more convenient for us. So I'll give you an example of that clown in Virginia who wore blackface back in the 70s and didn't realize the implications of that when he was young. And so Black leaders have put pressure on him to create an organization that looks into the concerns of Black people in his state. However, of course, it'll be completely ineffective. That's why we need to build our own in order to put greater pressure on their pressures on us and retaliate through the law, through the pen, because the pen is mightier than the sword. You understand? So the economic growth that Bebop will strive for is to become an international commodity to invoke international protection from the injustices we currently encounter from the current system that we live in. Community building continued. Business startup growth. Community businesses. Community businesses are defined as businesses that are self-sufficient and owned by the community. For example, a store in which the income is used to pay all employees and the net income is used for the upkeep of the community. Each community should have a minimum of 4 community businesses. The employees of the community businesses will be the assistant participants. The management of the community businesses will be maintained by the Financial Community Council, who will appoint a physical store manager. Community building continued. Business startup growth. Network businesses. Network businesses are defined as businesses outside of the general population of the communities used to draw outside income from the surrounding cities. Note, network businesses can also be businesses of unassisted participants that owned businesses prior to coming into the community. Network businesses will provide 1 to 3% of monthly income to be added to the community pot. The community pot can be utilized to advance a thriving network business with additional locations. Note, the industrial area of the community should be maxed out prior to utilizing the community pot. Business plans presented and accepted by participants that have completed the socialization program will be considered network businesses. Community building continued. Business startup and growth. Once first businesses are functioning, each business will provide 1 to 3% of monthly gross income in a separate pot for each community. 1 to 3% yearly gross breakdown. 1% equals $1 million plus $10,000 annually. 2% equals $500,000 up to $1 million, 10,000 annual. 3% equals 50,000 up to 500,000, 1,500 plus annual. Max out. Once an industrial area of a community has maximized its potential businesses, for example, the community is surrounded by businesses, the funding for the pot will be utilized to help support upkeep of the community. Internal trading. Each state will identify a primary good to service all of the other states. Each community within their primary state will be responsible for creating trade posts, trade routes throughout that state. Note, the state and financial council will determine the trade system within their respective states or respective states. But this trading system must correlate with the national trading system. Each state will need to purchase enough land to manufacture the identified goods. It is in the interest of the state to produce enough to support the communities as well as profit from outside consumers. So remember, like I said, Black Wall Street had 600 businesses, 21 churches, 21 restaurants, 30 grocery stores, two movie theaters, 6 private airplanes, 1 hospital, 1 bank, its own school system. And Tulsa, Oklahoma was not unique. There was Black Wall Streets all over the country, and they were the inspiration for the White Wall Street that is in New York. So their first commodities were slaves, of course. Okay, interstate trading. The regional council, with the assistance of the state council, will establish a national trade system that will ensure that all necessary goods needed for all communities will be provided. Each region will need to purchase enough land to house all of the goods that their region will provide to other regions. Each region will need to establish a complete logistical system that will connect each community on a national scale. So that's trucks and trains and planes to deliver the goods. International community building. Once BBOC is established on a national platform, which that takes time and pragmatic effort, international relations will commence. BBOC will show ourselves friendly to spark international relations through providing financial resources that will make us a commodity to that international community. This will be established through international trading and solidifying BBOC's economic system internationally. So Akon needs to get up with me. If anybody knows anybody that knows anybody that knows anybody that knows Akon, he needs to get up with me because he needs to get this plan in place in Senegal. International trading. Once international community building begins to establish itself, BBOC will begin trading and enter into commerce on an international scale. International socialization. Once international trading has been established, the final process is to help establish our fellow brothers and sisters using the BBOC outline. Okay, so now we got the basics. All we need is bodies. Any questions?
All right. We're gonna now hand this thing over to brother
I got you. One
Nyame.
moment.
Brother Nyame. We're
Yeah,
gonna hand this thing over to you now, brother. I'm gonna go ahead and click on your screen.
yeah. Click
Yep.
on the black out screen.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, brother, you could begin.
All right. I mean, the fundamental question is what we need to do, what must be done. That's like a very important question. But I just want to start off by saying I follow a philosophy of Ubuntu. I am what I am because of who we are. And that's just a basic philosophy that if I'm going to be rich and wealthy and successful, I surround myself with people with that same mindset, but we're going to be wealthy, rich, and successful together, not by myself. So I'm about building a community of wealthy people because wealth is built through families. We have a lot of wealthy Black people, but if you notice the Michael Jacksons, if you notice the R. Kellys and the Bill Cosby, that wealth does not last because they didn't build a community of wealth. They built the individual wealth, and it's easy to be taken away. So Ubuntu. I first want to start off by saying, in order for us to get Ubuntu, we have to change the way we raise our children because I don't believe we're ready for a change in Black America. Um, I think we can get ready within a generation, but at the moment, no. So we have to develop um, a culture of winning, a culture that wants to build these societies with that Ubuntu philosophy. So it's going to take a time of developing our most potential leaders to have the right self-mastery and ethics in their mental state and in their physical state in order to create the environment that we need. We have to develop these leaders. And the first step to me in developing these leaders, we need a world view. We have so many different world views that if we begin to build together, we're just going to tear it apart because we have all these different world views. We need a world view based upon the evidence that we can find and come together. And On the screen, I have a book called African Time. It's a 1,000-page book of the global African, how he migrated out of Africa and built these civilizations around the world that lasted for millennia. And in African Time, and in this book by Chancellor Will, the book African Time is by a guy, PhD, Dr. Taka Kilimanjaro, and here's The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. African Time is a much more in-depth book, but The Destruction of Black Civilization is a good introduction to understand what we had once upon a time, the civilizations we had, and how we lost those civilizations, how we lost. If you look around the world, we have no superpower when there was a time we had all the superpowers on the planet and we lost every one of them. So there is a method that takes place in human society. That method is you're born, you develop, you reach a high point of development, and then you begin to regress. And in your stages of regression, you pass that information on to the next developing stage. If you don't, your society will lose and somebody else would take that information. And that's what happened to us. So these civilizations that came before us, they had a method of building a civilization, of maintaining a civilization and passing their wealth on to their children and their progeny. It's a universal method that happens time and time again. This is a basic book by Dr. Taka Kilimanjaro called A Researcher's First Handbook. He just basically teaches the basics of research, something that we really need to teach, because we're trying to figure out how did they build those civilizations and how we can do it again. This is the basics of, the book is called Saba, but you have to ask the right questions. So first step in building these leaders of tomorrow for us, we have to teach them to ask the right questions. Why are we here? Why don't we have power in North America, South America, in our own land of Africa, in Central America? How did we ever have power? And if we did, how do we lose it? So we do the research on those questions. Then we construct a hypothesis on how to fix the problem. And Brother Clay, what he did today is he gave his hypothesis based upon his research, which a lot of what he said I agree with. I have some issues with some things and we'll talk about it. But here we're going through a method that has been proven time and time again by human civilizations. They went through these same steps. We have to ask the right questions. We have to make the right measurements. We have to draw the right conclusions. And then we have to test everything that we just studied. This book here is called Box Square. And what he does is he puts that scientific method and tests those ideas in America, how America got started, how America developed, and how America has risen to power and our place within America. So we have to find authors, we have to find scientists who has put in this type of work, or we have to put in this type of work and get the right measurements. We have to get the right direction from our hard work and research so we can put that research down on paper and be able to articulate articulate it to the masses of our people. Like I said before, we have to begin to build this culture that we're going to solve our own problems. And I don't think we're there just yet. It's going to take some time. We're going to have to get there. So the first step is the step of research. The first step, and I know a lot of people say, man, we've been researching for so long. But what happens, let's take the civil rights movement. We would develop a strategy to come against our enemies. We'll win a battle, and then they will come back, and then we'll lose whatever we gain. And so we're at this point now where it's like we're stagnated. That's because we didn't continue to, when there's a move, there's a counter move. So in the 70s and 80s, when we've been attacked with drugs, all the activities in our communities, we never countered that attack. So now we're still living under the damage of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we're just now starting to say, look, we have to regroup and we have to counter that attack. So right now, we are in the stages of regrouping because we dropped the ball in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We dropped the ball. So we have to regroup. And then, as I said before, we have to start developing leaders with that mindset that's going to lead us in the correct direction. We can't assume that a prophet is just going to come and set everything straight. We have to educate our young people. We have to educate all of our people to develop the right type of mind to defeat our enemies. And our enemies come in various shapes and forms and sizes and races. There's no one look, but we have to be able to identify it, and that takes education. We go through 12 years of education at the elementary level and still can't solve problems. We have people who've gotten PhDs and cannot come back in the community and solve our problem, our basic problems in our communities. That's because they've been miseducated. So to me, the first part is developing our culture to raise up leaders. So we would need a council of elders. And that will be our leadership, the council of elders. These people will have the moral strength, the mental capacity, and the physical ability to carry out the goals of our people. And before we can even talk about building the manufacturing plants and building the agriculture of the future, we have to get the right mindset before we can even start in the right direction. Because we just came out of a hellish battle in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. And it's time for us to regroup. All the other systems that we did in the past, we got to learn from them, but we can't bring them into the future. A new set of goals and ideas have to be developed and then carried out by the most proficient of our people. This is the best way forward. This is what must be done.
Okay. Okay. So we heard some great ideas from the brother. He's got his heart in the right place. You know, we dealing with a earnest brother here, and then we got, of course, Solar Mind. His brain is screwed up. He still ain't apologized for his foolishness that he did. But I got some understanding to add to what he said here. So you got the foundation is the worldview, and you must agree, okay, that our ancestors recorded things. You said we need to learn some information to a certain part of development, and then as we regress in that development and pass it on to the youth and whatnot, that the youth need to learn what we have already learned. So I challenge and propose to you that that has already been done many times by ancient cultures. Okay, so the Israelites is an ancient culture that wrote down information, and people still argue about it today instead of learning the information. Instead of bashing the ancestors' information that they left for us to learn, and that whole culture that they built, and all the resources that they gathered together into the wealthiest family on the face of the planet, you should get involved with it and help them. If you don't want to consider yourself an Israelite, then that's a problem. So now, when you mention enemies, you should be able to itemize your enemies instead of trying to figure out from this point forward who they are. You should already know who your enemies are. You understand? So, most Israelites can rattle off who the enemies are because our ancestors already left that information for us, and we can identify them today as we look around the world. You said to develop a culture. The Israelites already have a culture. So return to your culture. That's all you need to do. Ubuntu is a good idea. That's an African culture inspired by, I would say, Israelites. And they have, and a white man came up with commerce system based on Ubuntu of sharing with each other. But he wants to take money out of the equation. But money has always been a part of the Israelite experience. So as people wake up, they're going to start gravitating towards Ubuntu, of course, because that is the most natural way to govern yourself. Except for that, you need to keep money involved in it because money controls everything, whether you know it or not. And you said to have a council of elders. So Bebop has a national council of elders, and we will soon have an international council of elders once we build all these 48 communities. Okay, so I'm on the national council. There's only 5 of us. Yanai Yasharala is another one, and there are 3 more. So I'm also a elder of the Friends of the African Union. So the African Union is similar to the European Union, and what they're doing is trying to unify the African countries in the continent that you love so dearly. So that's a reason that Akon is going over there to Senegal to build a futuristic city because he listens to the community and tries to figure out the best way to go about it since he has a huge platform to get things done. And China loaned him $1 billion or $7 billion or whatever, $1 billion. It might have been 7 billion. And he's going to stay in debt to them forever. I promise you. So that's why everybody on the sound of my voice needs to get with our program and make this happen. So that's my only objections to the excellent presentation you did there, brother.
Right. And what you're saying sounds nice, but I have to disagree with you. You said your ancestors, um, you said they left a wealth. What did you say about their civilization?
I said that they learned how to build effectively, and they left a record for people thousands of years later that everybody on the face of the planet knows about that family. And so they also collected resources from around the world, and they are the wealthiest, the number one top wealthiest family on the face of the planet. And so this is why Jewishers and fake white people want to claim themselves to be Israelites. But the gatekeepers of that wealth that they collected won't allow those white people to tap into it. So they stole it, but they can't use it because it's cursed. And when they attempt to use it, they die.
So at one point, when were the Hebrew Israelites the wealthiest people on the earth?
At all times before we were conquered. And so when we were conquered, the wealth was stolen, but it was stayed in the possession of Israelites up until the 1200s, when the Mongolians came in and stole a portion of it, and then the Chinese came in and stole a portion of it, and then in the 1400s, which started the Renaissance period for the white world, the Pope stole that fortune from the Mongolians and the Chinese. So what he did was he lobbied to get the Mongolians and the Chinese to return it to the rightful owner, who was an Israelite, which he did. After doing that, he stole it from that one guy, since it was all collected back into his possession. He stole it from that one guy who didn't have a army to protect it. Then before it was stolen from him, it was spread out all over the earth in varying accounts and buried it in the earth and stuff like this, all over the earth.
Claim you was doing good and up until this point, because I can't follow anything you're saying about this kingdom.
You don't think the kingdom ever existed?
Yes, I do believe Israel existed at a period in time, but they wasn't an empire at all. It was
Okay.
It was just a kingdom. It was
Okay, just a kingdom. That's great. Okay, so now, since it was just a kingdom, a kingdom has to have resources and people in order for things to be ruled over. So there was a king who ruled over actual people and an actual space of land. And what he did was, during his lifetime, was add to the resources that had been collected over the 1600 years before he was even born. So he was already wealthy, and then he added to his collection, making him the absolute most wealthiest person on the face of the planet. That trickled down all the way to the 700s AD with the the rise of them boys, them boys in Africa, them Mali boys, them Timbuktu boys, and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
So I mean, I'm just adding to information that you may not be aware of, but I can pull the resources in a real structured conversation. We don't have a lot of time on this one, but
right. I mean, we can do that for another discussion, because I have never historically read about a Hebrew Israelite empire.
you never heard of King David. You never heard of King Solomon.
From the biblical text, yeah, but
Okay, so if you
historically,
heard of them, then you think that was just made up like a comic book, huh?
yes.
Okay, well then that's your problem. That's why you don't have the plan for the future, because you ignore that entire history. So how can you know where to go in the future if you don't know where you came from, brother?
How do you validate that empire?
With the structures that were in place and the record that they left.
Okay, I understand the record, but there is no structures in place.
There are structures in place, and also there are records of other nations dealing with these people.
Okay, let's
Don't do
take
that
South.
with comic books. Comic books don't interact with each other like that.
let's take Solomon for instance. There is no mention of a King Solomon nowhere.
Man, that's not the topic
History.
of the conversation. We're trying to deal with the future, and your retardation is leaving you in the dust. Okay, so we're
Right.
trying to get to the future, and you can't even accept the past.
It's not accepting the past. Is I can only build on real foundations. I can't. Let's say we go and we build a house, and you want to build a house that floats in the air. I'm going to say we can't do that because it's not possible. I need a solid foundation to build from.
About airplanes, that's what they said about frisbees, that's what they said about boats, that's what they said about everything, and nothing's possible until you do it.
You still have to have a sound foundation to build from. So, like an airplane, they built an airplane from the principles of aerodynamics and the electric motive force. So they took strong foundations. But I didn't want to stay on that too long. But that's an issue I do have, is that how do we build this cohesive group of people if we have all these varying different degrees of ideas? What is the unifying point? How do we get past that?
Okay, the unifying point. I'm glad you brought that up, brother. All right, you live in the United States.
Yes.
What state do you live in?
Texas.
Okay, I live in North Carolina. Do we have a different world views?
As far as like Hebrew Israelite, that's a different worldview.
So
But
I
as
have a
far as,
different worldview from you, correct?
yes,
And we both live in the United States, correct?
correct.
And things are still going as it's supposed to. Like everything's going like it's supposed to. Everything's being governed. Motherfuckers is getting shot and killed by police. Motherfuckers is getting robbed every day. Everybody's getting killed every day. But abortions are happening at 2,000 little babies a day. That's what's happening right now. But
Correct.
whenever we get together on one accord and move and build something for ourselves, those things won't be happening to certain people. The people that are on one accord who know not to do those things and will fight back.
Right. I agree with that.
Okay. So when you say, how can you and me unify? All we need is laws and a leadership in place. A leadership is decided by an election. So you put a leader in place that know what he's talking about and got a whole team in place that can make things happen, and then go out, do the footwork like the US military does and send out 2 by 2. They go out to the communities and they say, hey, you want to join the military? They're like, hell no, hell no. Until they reach a yes. They might get 50 no's before they get a yes. Then they tell the yes man to come into the office and join the military. And then they guide them into the thing. So that's the same way we can do. We can do everything they do. We got the people. All we need to do is have the promotion. So you can't be talking against it. You have to say, hey man, that's a great idea. Let's go.
Well, okay. What if we have a group of people within that organization that practice voodoo? How would you feel about that?
Okay, listen, brother. I just made this clear. I'm gonna repeat it for you. There are people in the United States who practice voodoo right now. They are controlled and governed by other people because they don't govern themselves. They just do voodoo all day and think it works. So the government, which is we're trying to create a government, me and maybe you, I don't know if you're trying to do an anarchy or a government. I can't, I'm not clear on that part. But you want to mold babies' minds into leadership when there are already leaders right now who know what to do.
You said there's leaders right now that know what to do.
Uh-huh.
Right, but leaders need people to back them.
Correct. That's what I'm trying to sway you to do.
No, go ahead, continue.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that there's already people here who have the information that you want to see happen. So all you have to do is say, that's a great idea. Let's go. Where do we go? What time do we need to be there? It's very simple. So the more people that do that, the faster it happens. But when people say, hell nah, the Bible's involved, fuck you, I'm not going nowhere with you because you believe in that fake comic book called the Bible.
Okay, but what about the part with the voodoo?
As I stated, I'm going to say it again for the third time, that they are being governed by people. Okay? So what is trying to be put forward for the future for Black people is for us to govern ourselves and create a government. So the people who practice any form of whatever foolishness you're talking about, whatever foolishness you can think of, whether you think my thing is foolish or your thing is foolish or whatever, it needs to be have a government in place with a commerce attracting funds to that community and then distributing those funds to the people to create more money and then keep the government flowing. Just keep flowing, straightening things out, protecting ourselves from local haters, the white nationalists, and extending our olive branch to the governments around the world to protect us from local white nationalists, and just keep building as we go along. It's real simple.
Right. Do you think at any point we're gonna have to get out of America?
Hell no, we own the whole planet. They need to get out of America. Whoever the white nationalists need to get out of America. Yeah, get out of America for what? What's gonna happen if we stay here?
The same thing happened in Rosewood. Same thing happened in Black Wall Street.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Who told you that?
I'm just looking at history. The stronger we get, the stronger the reaction will be.
Man, please. You do realize that if they attempt a citywide invasion today, that they'll be met by the National Guard, which will roll over them like they're little ants on the ground and murder them all. That's why they haven't done it in many years.
What you mean? They are the National Guard.
Hmm?
They are the National Guard and the state police.
I mean, please. If that was the case, they wouldn't forcefully by the gun integrated the schools in order to destroy us even further.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
I said if white nationalists were uh had any influence on the National Guard, then they would not have forcefully integrated and combated the white nationalists who didn't want us to get proper education and by integrating the schools.
You missing your last part that you said. You said us being integrated into the school hurt us worse.
That's correct.
Right. So don't you think they knew that?
I don't think
When
they
it,
did. I don't think I don't think they have the foresight to know these things. So they think that white people see they white people, you see they wear masks, right? So they don't want to be known for they are embarrassed by their racism and shit like that. So they do it covertly. So they don't
right,
know who these people are.
right,
Pretty
they
much.
wear masks because they sit in the seats of governor. They sit on the Senate. They sit in
Yeah, but
Congress. They
do you
sit as
realize if
police
they are
chiefs.
exposed that they will lose their seat instantly or even die? So
Right.
that's why
That's why they do it covertly.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're doing it covertly on purpose because if the governing structures find out who these people are, they're either gonna die or they're going to jail forever. So they have to do it secretly. So now what I'm telling you is that they don't have any influence as a open body with their open face to do anything. Because if they even insinuate their retardation and hate for black people, then they're gonna lose everything that they work covertly to steal. So I'm telling you, all we got to do is get together and move forward, and we can. It's easy to expose those people. You can they go to a Klan rally. Their Klan accepts black people now. 200.
Yeah, because I mean, they've moved past the Klan. The Klan is at least, what, 60, 70 years old. Like I said, they sit in the Senate. You heard of the alt right?
Yeah,
The alt right, they have their leaders in the White House right now. The Klan has evolved into this multinational corporation that
man.
influence.
I'm gonna tell you what a wise man told me a couple days ago. Don't worry about the competition. I'm sitting here trying to make you strong, get strong-willed and strong-minded to realize that we already have information on how to combat the competition. So I'm saying you have to start building your own shit. Don't worry about them. Build your own shit. And then as they come at you, destroy them.
I agree with that. Have you ever played a game of chess?
Yeah.
Right. Well, then in chess, you need to anticipate your enemy move. You need to know what each of his pieces is doing before he even makes a move.
Man, chess is extremely simplistic compared to what we're talking about. So we already have those plans in place to perfectly eradicate enemies that come against uh building our own shit. So now that includes black people that uh do that COINTELPRO madness that they be trying to do.
So let's take Flint, Michigan, for instance. What could be done for Flint, Michigan, and that water crisis that they got up there, the poison water?
Somebody done already the gay boy done already paid to get it fixed. Will
Yeah, but
Smith's son.
it's not fixed.
He done already pledged the money to pay to get it fixed, brother.
You know that started in 2014. It's 2019 right now.
Man, I don't know why are we talking about Flint, Michigan when we're trying to build our own shit. Well, Flint, Michigan. Fuck the occupants of Flint, Michigan. They need to motherfucking get with us and build our own shit. They decide to stay there. They want to stay there. They like that water. Oh, you ain't coming back. Oh, you can send it. You just send it. Walmart to Walmart. Okay.
Right. I agree. We have to build it ourselves, but there has to be a plan that if we can't stay here, we have to have a plan of where we can get up and go.
Okay, well then write the plan out and distribute it to people that think like yourself. I'm saying that for me personally, I don't got to go nowhere. My community already has a flee a runaway and be scared doctrine and run somewhere else. But the whole earth is governed by the same goddamn people everywhere, including the black countries that got 99.99% black people with their own governments and everything and their own militaries. They're still ruled by white nationalists.
No, not everywhere.
Who's not?
I know. I know for sure Cuba's not.
Cuba's not. Cuba is a white country run by white people. What are you
Cuba's
saying?
not.
Huh?
Cuba's not a white country. Yeah, there's Spaniards who sit in the seat of power, but the president of Cuba is a black woman right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's good. But like I was saying, that's just like saying Obama fixed everything for us because he's a black person. So, it's just crazy how y'all think. Black don't mean a goddamn thing. You got to have the information from our ancestors, which is the Israelites. They done already figured this out. If your ancestor is something else, go get their records and tell us how to do this thing. Our ancestors left us a perfect plan on whenever we find ourselves in this condition to build this way and pragmatically build it. It says to start out with elections. It says to rethink yourself and remember who you are. And then it says to build.
Right, but
Just
I don't
the
see
people.
nowhere where that happened. Where has that happened?
Where did what happen?
Where the so-called Hebrew Israelites has built this great nation.
Listen, what I'm saying is that they were great at one point. They fell, like you said, that civilizations regress and they start to go down. Remember, you said that in your presentation.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's what happened to us, and then what's happening now is that people around the world are finding out that they are related to that story. They didn't know that they were related to that story, so it gives them a vested interest to learn the information in the book, and then it tells them how to build properly. So the plan is perfect. So that's all I'm saying, basically.
All right, cool. I guess we can debate that one day. This
Mhm.
not the day.
Mhm.
But it was good talking to you. Is Solar there? Solar might have fell asleep.
All right, well, it was good building with you, brother. We'll get up some other time. I'm gonna get out of here.
All right.